Hey guys, it's Christina. Welcome back. So, as you saw by the title of today's video, we're gonna be talking about books that remind me of the songs on The Fate of Ophelia. No, on The Life of the Showgirl, because I feel like after a month of listening to this album on repeat, more than a month actually, I think I'm ready to give you guys a little rundown of what songs relate to some books I have read and some books that I actually really love as well. So without further ado, we shall get started. I do want to say some of these have less books than others. I tried to aim for 3 book recommendations per song, but some of them were a little harder. But anyway, let's get started. So of course, we're going to start with The Fate of Ophelia. First of all, we have The Do-Over by Lynn Painter. I feel like this is such a good first recommendation because of The Do-Over. If you have not read it, it is like kind of like a Groundhog Day situation where our main character goes over the same day over and over again, and she just kind of thinks she's stuck in this like life or like universe where she has to relive the same day over and over again, and of course that doesn't end up happening. So that's my first recommendation. And then we have Funny Story. I feel like I could put other Emily Henry books in this, but A Funny Story, I feel like, they both went through these breakups in the beginning of the book, and I feel like they both think that's kind of the end for them, and they just decide to be roommates. But then they kind of found love with each other, and that kind of reminds me of The Fate of Ophelia. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but Funny Story, like, The Fate of Ophelia definitely reminds me of Funny Story in our main characters, both the guy and the girl. And then for my last recommendation for The Fate of Ophelia is the Addicted series, specifically Lily and Lo, but I do have to say Rose and Connor really remind me of the song as well. But I feel like with what Lily and Lo went through in their particular series really reminds me of the song, because I kind of think they both thought it was the end for them in the first few books. If you know, you know. And I think they came out stronger and better than most of the couples, but I do think it applies to Connor and Rose as well. Then we have Elizabeth Taylor. I feel like when I do the same recommendation everybody has been doing, but it just feels so obvious, which is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I mean, come on. She's literally Elizabeth Taylor. Evelyn Hugo is Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor is Evelyn Hugo. Obviously, the context is a little different because, Evelyn Hugo had first of all, a lot more husbands, and second of all, she had a secret lover that we know of. So I think it reminds me of her because of that, and because of, what Evelyn went through and what Elizabeth Taylor went through. And then also a little bit because she had all these things, and especially the lyric, because I can't have fun if I can't have you, and that lyric reminds me of Evelyn and, I forgot her name, the other character's name. And then the second and last recommendation for this song is Magnolia Parks. I put this is a little bit like you have to think about it a little bit, but I did put this book on here because I feel like, I don't know, first of all, obviously Magnolia is super famous in this like London superstar kind of rich area, and she's very popular. Like, she makes the news and that kind of stuff, if I remember correctly, and she has all these luxurious things, and sure, she goes through a lot with BJ when they're not together, and they kind of do hurt each other, but I feel like in the end it's them together and that's it, and if they don't have each other, they don't really care for anything else, if that makes any sense. That's my opinion. And I think that when I listen to Elizabeth Taylor, I do think of like, someone so famous and so popular and so watched, and finally finding someone that they can relate to, and like they can probably like share the same kind of sentiment. And I think you see that with Magnolia Parks, and Magnolia specifically. Then the next song, as we all know, is Opalite. We have, first of all, okay, I did not finish this series yet. Didn't finish it yet. I'm in the last book. But with first book, we have Powerless by Lauren Roberts. As I'm finishing the series, I'm literally on Fearless. As we're finishing the series, I do think Opalite reminds me so much of Kai and Peyton, and that's pretty much it. That's the only reason, especially because Peyton has been through hell and back. Let's just say that. And I feel like when they're together, like, sure, like there's so much yearning, but I also think they talk about each other so highly, especially in this last book, that I'm just like, I'm trying to say some things without spoiling it, but it feels like they finally found some light in their darkness from their past, and that's why I put this book here, especially the Powerless. Like, I put Powerless for the first book, but I do think you can see the transition, like, of this whole song throughout the during the trilogy, like from like what would be the first and second verse to what would be the chorus, if that makes any sense. Then the second book we have for Opalite is the Heartstopper series. I read this in the beginning of the year, and oh my god, like, I keep thinking about it. I think there's one comic book left that needs to be released, but it really reminds me of, I don't remember these characters' names. I need to start learning it. I feel like Opalite literally represents like Heartstopper series. I feel like when our two main characters are together, even when they're just friends, they literally, like, their worlds bright up. Even besides whatever's happening outside, the judging and the other social factors that play into these books, I feel like that when they're together, they're finally happy, if that makes any sense. And then the last book for Opalite is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. I thought of this more not for the main girl, but for the main guy, who I think his name was Noah for some reason. But it reminded me so much of The Wall of Winnipeg and Me because he used to be so grumpy, and we all know that. And he's still kind of grumpy at the end of the book, but I feel like once our girl main character came into his life, he got so much better and so much happier. And we see this throughout the book. It is a slow burn, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. It's kind of on the Book Talk original, if that makes any sense. Like, that was one of the first books that blew up, and I do think that our main male character represents the song very well. Now we go to Father Figure, which is one of my favorite songs on this album. It's beginning to be on my top 5 maybe. But first of all, we have, okay, I feel like these answers are a little, like, you have to think about it, but I'll explain. So the first one is As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson. There is a reoccurring character that in this book that you see from book 1, if I remember correctly. And I don't want to say what happens because obviously that will be a spoiler. I have repeatedly said how much I hate this ending because I feel like Pip wouldn't have done this, but the more I do think about it, the more I'm like, okay, maybe she would have. And I do think it's her father figure moment. Like, it's not someone she relied on, but let's just say she got her revenge. And it gave father figure. It gave, like, I was like, period. I was like, yeah. You know what? Yeah. The more I think about it, the more I like that ending. It's still my least favorite out of the trilogy, but I do think that it is very much father figure. She owned that shit. And I feel like Pip in general, throughout the 3 books, she's a father figure. Like, she's doing stuff that she shouldn't be doing. She takes control. She solves cases that should have been solved better. I just think she's that bitch. Just put it that way. And then for another strong female character, we have the Non-Style Sleeps trilogy. I have not talked about this trilogy too much, and it's not too popular, so I'll try to explain it a little bit. Basically, it follows 2 of our characters who are called into the FBI to help with teenage serial killers. And so the guy, our main male character, his dad died in the hands of a teenage serial killer, and she was captured by one. So they're brought in to help the FBI learn the mind of these serial killers, and then something happens where they get involved into a case of yet another serial killer, and they talk to one. And this one, it's really creepy because when you listen to audiobooks, everybody has the same voice, like the same voice actor, except the one serial killer that's also like one of the main characters. And it adds like a creepy element, and I feel like he thinks he has this authority over our female main character, and she takes her power back, and I think that is really badass throughout the trilogy. I mean, she definitely like is scared of him. I would be too, but she does not let that show, and if it shows, like, it's like a moment of weakness. I do think she is one of the strongest like female characters I've read, and I love her, especially because she's been through so much. So that reminds me of father figure again, like I said, because the serial killer thinks he's like mentoring her and like he can manipulate her, evidence or whatever, and then she's like, mm-mm. And then last but not least, this one's definitely like you gotta think about it, which is Cruel Prince. I read this far long ago, so I don't remember it much, but I just remember like main character being really badass and owning it. So that's why I put the Crow Prince book and trilogy overall, of course. The next song we have is Eldest Daughter. I love this song, which is so surprising because I only found one book I could put on here, which is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I think I read this, yes, I read this summer and I loved it. And I'm not sure, I know our main female character, she is the older sister. She is the eldest daughter, and she literally gives the vibes of this song, especially with her younger brother and what he's going through. I don't know if her main male character is the youngest brother. I know he has sisters, but I can't remember. But the one, like, I feel like she's the eldest daughter, and like she gives eldest daughter energy, he gives youngest son energy, and they combine each other perfectly, especially with the, I think it's the bridge. It talks about her being the eldest daughter and how, like, especially like, oh, there's so many lyrics I could like quote that remind me of like Truly in this book, but especially the like, every youngest child thought they were raised up in the wall and now you're home. And I feel like, oh, Jacob, that was his name. Jacob grew up in such an environment where it was super loud and super, you know, he grew up with sisters, and he's someone with has anxiety. And with a main male character, he feels like so calm and so at home, and he does things that he wouldn't usually do, but he feels comfortable doing with her, and that's why. That was the best I could do. I was like, I'm not topping Yours Truly for Eldest Daughter. There's no way I'm topping that. But that's my only recommendation for Eldest Daughter. Then for Ruin the Friendship, I do have 3. This was actually the easiest one to do. That would surprise me. I feel like the first one is very obvious, which is If He Had Been With Me. I don't know if I can talk about the ending of this one. I mean, it's in the beginning of the book, but it's been released for a while, and obviously I feel like this represents Finney and Autumn, if that's their names. Obviously, I mean, technically they did tell each other that they liked each other and that they loved each other, whatever, but then he dies. And she's like, what could have been, you know, like, he should have kissed you anyway, right? And then that, I feel like that represents, they should have ruined this friendship a long time ago. They shouldn't have waited. They shouldn't have dated other people, you know, the whole shebang. And then we have 2 happier books for this song, which one of them I haven't talked about in a long time as well, which is Love in Other Words. This was one of the first, another one of those like first book talk books that became popular, and it was one of the books that made me realize I am a second chance kind of girl, a second chance friends to lovers kind of girl. And basically that's what it is. It's a second chance romance, and it just kind of reminds me of them, because I'm pretty sure like what causes them to stop talking is giving like they should have talked about it. I'm trying not to spoil it, but that's kind of how it goes. And then of course, Better Than the Movies. I feel like this is so obvious. Like, they ruined their friendship, and they should have ruined the friendship because it worked out for them. So I feel like I don't really know how to explain ruin the friendship for Better Than the Movies, but I just like think that it's such a song that is them, and like I said, like it has a happy ending. So technically, you know, they did ruin the friendship, but I feel like it just represents Wes and, oh, I forgot her name. I'm forgetting a lot of names. That's besides the point. Now we go into actually romantic. Again, this one was surprisingly hard. I only have 1 book, which is Carrie Soto Is Back. And if you read Carrie Soto Is Back, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They talk so much crap about her on the media, other tennis players, all the shebang. And it's like actually romantic how much they talk about her. Like, she's always on their minds. Rent free. I feel like this book represents this song so well, in my opinion. I just feel like it literally, like, if I had read Carrie Soto while this song was out, it's what I could all I could hear, right? And then we go into Wish List, which first of all we have Keeping 13. I think Johnny and Shannon are made for each other, and I feel like in the ending, in the very end, where, you know, it's the ending and they're happy and all that, they remind me of this song so much, especially the acoustic version that just came out. Very Johnny and Shannon, and I feel like this song was made for them. I feel like it would be on that little CD Johnny made for her, and that's my opinion. I feel like Wish List, it reminds me of Johnny and Shannon, and they go through so much, and I'm so happy, like, they just want each other and they want to live with each other forever and ever, and that reminds me of Wish List. Anyway, Keeping 13 is also the only song on Wish List. I will make up for it because I have 4 books for it, which is kind of just, I think it's actually hilarious. I don't even have 4 books, it's more than 4 books, so you'll see why. But I have 4 recommendations. I have, first of all, Fourth Wing. Zayden. I feel like for Wood, I don't want to give an explanation because we all know what Wood is about. Then we have the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver and anything else she writes, of course. Then we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. And then we have The Score, which specifically Dean De Laurentiis. And now we are finally on our last 3 songs for Cancelled. For Cancelled, I actually thought this one was going to be the hardest one of them all, but I got 3 really quickly. The first one is Six of Crows duology, but Six of Crows obviously specifically. It is one of my favorite books, as everybody knows, and I feel like the 6 characters are literally like canceled people in like the universe. I feel like the song really represents them as a group and how, you know, no matter how bad it is, like they'll support each other, and how much scrutiny each gets, they'll support each other no matter what, and that really reminds me of them. That leads me to another one that is not in the fantasy world but still reminds me of that, which is One of Us is Lying. The friend group that ended up coming out of that, like, sure, most of them didn't like each other at the beginning, but I feel like One of Us is Lying, like, they're like, I think at the end, especially as you read onto the series, like if you go down, I'm going down too, kind of thing. And that reminds me of the song Cancelled, especially after, you know, how they expose each other's secrets. They just kind of hang on to each other and they don't judge each other for it. Then the last one in Cancelled, this one, obviously there's no friend group in this trilogy, but it's a housemate trilogy, and that goes for like our main girl. I forgot her name, but it was literally in my head just a second ago. Our main girl, like, in the bodyguard, I think he was the bodyguard, I feel like they make a good team, and like I feel like what she does for other women in these series, like she will defend them to the death. She will defend them no matter what and help them out no matter what. And that's what I think, even if it means getting herself canceled, aka going to prison, or getting them canceled, like whatever it is, she'll defend them and do whatever it takes for them. And that reminded me of the song Cancelled. And then finally, last 2, we have 3 more books for the 2 songs are left. Honey, for the song Honey, we have When in Rome. Honey, I feel like a lot of people also related the song to this. It's like the One of Us is Famous trope. And I feel like the 2 best books, again, that represent Honey is When in Rome and While Dies by Elsie Silver. I feel like these 2 books, like I think in these 2 books, she's the one that's famous, which is actually funny that it's the same one. But I really like how, like, both the girls are kind of escaping of the judgment and the opinions, and like especially in Wild Eyes, where her parents are her managers, she's just escaping the negativity and the nicknames. And I feel like these 2 books, like, they kind of hate that kind of thing, and they meet their love interest, and now they're like, no, if you call me that, I don't care. Like, you're endearing, like, you're doing it out of the kindness of your heart. You're being endearing when you say that, and I want you to keep calling me that. And I think in Honey, in these 2 books, you can definitely see how grow to like being taken care of and loved, compared to how they were treated before meeting these characters. And then last but certainly not least, we have The Life of a Showgirl, and I love this book, and honestly all I could think of when I was reading this book was Daisy Jones and the Six. I did also think of Evelyn Hugo, but I didn't want to like repeat it. So Daisy Jones and the Six, I feel like that first chorus where Kitty is like talking to what would be you, it reminds me so much of Daisy, and this just reminds me of how strong she is and how the more she was in the music industry, the worse she had it. Obviously, you also see that in the song. The stronger she got and the like more badass she got, besides the obvious thing that we'll ignore. But yeah, that reminds me so much of Daisy. Like, she's a Life of the Showgirl. She is the showgirl, and she will always be the showgirl. And I hope for another season, even though we don't need another season. Like, there's no other season to make. But that's pretty much it. I did get a little confused in the middle there, so if the editing is a little weird, I'm very sorry. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye!